This is my friend Rhonda. We're going to be talking today. Rhonda and I have known each other for like, oh God, 15 years probably at this point. Something,
Yep.
isn't that wild?
It'll be 16 years in September. Yeah, it's
That's
crazy. I know.
crazy. That's crazy. And we've always kind of circled each other, at least peripherally, and always kept in touch and supported each other in ways that friends do. And I have always found you enchanting and intriguing and wanted to talk more to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel the same way about you, which is why you're going to be on my podcast later.
That's
You are
right.
really, you're really one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. And I've met a lot of really fascinating people over the course of my life, but you really are very.
Yeah, so I wanted to get to know you and talk to you a little bit about, like, I know you've been through things because we've been through things together, and I wanted to talk to you about that because you strike me as someone who walks in the world with a very positive attitude, very forthcoming and strong and resilient, and I want to know how that happens
Oh,
because I need that.
yes, yes.
So what was your childhood like? Can we start there?
Yeah, we can start there. So I grew up uh, as the middle child in five kids. I'll just try to include the relevant stuff, but basically a big family.
Hmm.
And mom was suffering with mental illness of her own.
Oh, really?
Yes, and unfortunately made it really difficult for her to be a mom and be
Yeah.
present. She spent a lot of time in bed. And my dad was gone a lot. He was gone during the week. And so we were with our mom. So we were, in a sense, on our own during the week. And then,
Mm,
when my dad would come home, he would be the one that would be doing all of the like disciplining and things like that. And so that was just, it was a hard childhood in terms of, abuse and in terms of really neglect.
yeah.
And so, as an adult, what happened? I mean, I don't want to skip through all like my teen years. I'll come back to that. But I was the only highly sensitive kid in the family.
Mm,
And as a result of that, the other folks in the family really didn't understand me as being a highly sensitive person. They did not understand that I would get tearful or I would get sad or I would get
mhm.
angry or, emotions were generally not encouraged in my household. That's
Gotcha.
putting it mildly. Like, if
Gotcha.
you had feelings, you were being problematic. It was sort of like,
I
go
can
to your
relate to
room,
that.
play nicely, don't get disturbed. That
Yes.
was kind
Yeah.
of the message
And
that we got.
can you tell people what highly sensitive means? Because it's a thing. It's not like, oh, I'm sensitive. It's a thing and it's written about, and maybe people don't have an understanding about what that means.
Highly sensitive people, the easiest way that I can explain it in lay terms is that highly sensitive people just have really big feelings and can become overwhelmed by feelings and maybe have trouble trusting other people, may just like, it's kind of like when we were growing up hearing people say like you're a sensitive kid. It's the same kind of thing. 20% of the population are highly sensitive people. There's some great books out there
Hmm.
written about the highly sensitive person. There's even a great book on the highly sensitive person in love. So I would encourage your listeners to
Oh,
check those books out, because understanding yourself as a highly sensitive person is just of paramount importance, because I grew up with a tremendous amount of shame,
hmm,
just feeling different, just feeling like there was something wrong with me, that I was an emotional kid. And I definitely remember distinct times when I felt just a tremendous amount of shame about the fact that maybe I got tearful when I was telling a story, or
Uh,
the other people in my family just kind of had a hard time with that. Some people in my family just really had a hard time with that. So,
yeah. Yeah, when you're in a family that's like glacial and not emotionally rich or mature, or is shut down, then a highly sensitive person, I imagine, well, I don't even just imagine, I was a highly sensitive person in my family. So it's yeah, they really don't know what to do with you, and you're really an outlier, and they cannot understand you. Why are you reacting in that way? Why are you feeling that way? Yeah.
so zero validation. So as an adult,
Yeah.
one of my major tasks was learning how to identify my feelings so that I could in turn communicate those feelings, so that I could in turn understand what my unmet needs were. But it required some time. And, it was really later on in my adulthood that I had an opportunity to finally be able to do that, because I spent so many years numbing out with drugs and alcohol, and not like shutting myself down in much the same way that I was shut down as a kid,
Right.
like, these feelings are not okay, you got to shut it down.
Hmm. And I think as a, when you're living with someone with mental illness, there's that secondary trauma that you get from living with mental illness. It's quite traumatic, and that breeds a lot of shame too. Like I believe trauma is a breeding ground for shame. Is that
Oh,
correct?
I would agree with that. I
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
I would.
So here you are, this very sensitive child, full of shame in this shut down family. Yeah, that must have been really hard with abuse happening and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was violence sometimes,
Mm. Oh,
and
Rhonda.
then I had an incident that happened to me that it was actually, I mean, technically a trauma, but I don't think that it really had much of an impact on me, in the sense that it was one time and it was relatively mild in terms of the intensity of it. But it was interesting because I always thought there was something there, like something had happened. I kind of
Hmm.
always felt like there was something there that I wasn't remembering.
Hmm.
And when that memory actually came to the forefront of my mind after being repressed my whole life, I was actually at a Greek restaurant with my best friend and her mom. And the reason that that is relevant is that the perpetrator was Greek. This person's family was Greek.
Oh.
And the Greek food triggered this memory in
Oh,
me.
wild.
And I was just sitting there and I started to cry very gently. And I felt simultaneously validated, in the sense of I always knew that there was something there, but I, didn't remember it. So it was validating in that sense. And, but it was not really that upsetting, because I always kind of knew that there was something there, even though I
Hmm.
didn't really know who. I knew that something had happened. And then I told my best friend, and I told her mom, and because they saw that I was crying, they said, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And I just said, I explained to them what had happened. And I said, "If this ruins my love of Greek food, I'm gonna be so pissed." I mean, it was like, it really wasn't, that
Hmm.
is one thing that I wanna this is a takeaway that I would like people to have from today, is that lots of us are exposed to trauma. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that we have PTSD. It's only a very small number of people that are exposed to trauma that do eventually develop PTSD. I had a lot more trauma happen in high school. There was one particular event, one trauma that happened that was very violent,
Oh, God.
very distressing. And that event, I'm sure, has affected me in ways that maybe I'm not even aware of now.
Hmm.
But I will say that that day I found out what a badass I am.
Okay. All right.
Because I fought them off.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. That's awesome in
Or,
that regard. Yeah.
yes, I fought them off. And, I'm a big girl. I'm six
Hmm.
feet tall and I'm strong. And that was the day that I found out what a badass I am. And that was one of the things that I think helped me to continue on in my life, because there were, I lived alone in high school. My parents moved away.
What? What do you mean you
Yes,
lived alone in high school?
I lived alone in high school. My parents moved away
How
and
did you
left me.
live alone?
How did I live alone?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a good time of my life. I mean, I was not ready to live alone in high school, not
Yeah.
even close.
No.
And my parents were about 1,000 miles away.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that was tough. That was really where a lot of my substance abuse started, was because it was like a combination of trauma, my DNA definitely, because I came from a long line of people with substance abuse problems,
Hmm.
and then being unsupervised as a teenager, like, of course, it was like, oh, Rhonda's parents moved away, party at Rhonda's house. It was like there was lots and lots of substance abuse going on
Wow. I bet.
with unsupervised kids.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean, right? I could have written a book about that time in my life. But anyway, so and then I was a teen mom, as you know,
Uh-huh.
a single teen mom.
With a delightful child.
Thank you. Yes. He's an amazing kid. And raised my son on my own,
Mm.
and there were like a series of really difficult times from between when I was born into a family that I described, and then the trauma that happened to me when I was growing up, and then the hardships of being like a teen mom and things like that. But what happened for me was that there were people that believed in me, and that
Mm.
was really all it took, because I applied to school. I mean,
Hmm.
I needed a scholarship because I was a single mom and wasn't going to be able to afford to go to school on my own. I didn't
Right.
even know how to, like, my parents never taught me about any of that.
Right.
So, applied for school, got a full scholarship, which is like the first thing you're.
Dang.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure that came with that, because I'd
No
been out of
doubt.
school for 5 years and I had to like maintain, I forget what my GPA needed to be, but graduated from undergrad with like a 4.96
Oh
GPA.
my God,
Um,
Rhonda.
yes, I worked so hard though, Sam, you have no idea. That was such a struggle. It
I can't even
was, because
imagine.
I didn't even go to college prep classes in high school. Like, I mean, I was just like thrown into this. I was going to
Wow.
school full time to get done sooner. And, my son was a huge motivating factor for me. I
Hmm.
wanted to have a better life for him. I wanted to have a better life for me, but definitely a better life for him.
Was there any point here in which you're seeking help or people are telling you you need help? I mean, were you seeing a therapist or none of that? No. Wow. Yeah.
I didn't even tell anyone about my trauma for years.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as women, it's a lot harder for someone who is female identified or female to go through that. I think we don't talk about it, and we don't have the same access to mental health. At least when in our time, like I think I'm older than you, but in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it's better now, but then it's not so good.
Right.
So you're in school, you're hustling, you've got this ridiculous GPA, you have a kid.
Yeah, and I went to a Jesuit university. I mean, I want you to understand, man, I was stressed out. I had a conversation with my son last week when I saw him, and I said, sweetie, I'm sorry if you saw me overwhelmed and ever took on any of my pain, because, in as part of my job, as a clinical psychologist, people sharing things with me being able to relate a lot to the things that they're sharing with me about, the things that have happened in their life, because I've had such an action-packed life. It has, like, in turn helped me be more sensitive to what other people are going through, which I think that's like my superpower, is like being able to connect with people emotionally, which allows me to be a good psychologist, right?
And also
Um,
because you are a sensitive person, like you have
yes,
that empathy just cranked up. Like, yeah, you can like practically read minds.
right. So, I see a lot of people in my practice that grew up with moms who were overwhelmed, and the kids ended up taking on that pain and like worried a lot
Mm,
about their mom. And I had that realization recently, and I thought, like, God, I would feel so bad if my son had been really worried about me, or, if he remembers his childhood as like mom being overwhelmed, because I was. But fortunately, I was able to hide that from him because he doesn't really remember me being overwhelmed that much, which is so surprising.
that's
I
fantastic
know,
and
I know,
wild.
it
Wow.
is.
I mean,
I
and
know.
that's just seems to me to be yet another layer of like anxiety and work that you had to do to protect that kid, like so much going on.
So the people that I worked with in college that believed in me and took a chance on me, I had people steadily prepare me for going to graduate school and continuing. And to be honest with you, Sam, like, I couldn't stop going to school at college because I knew that I wasn't going to really make that much money. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to, like, be a single parent, send my kid to college, do all the things that I needed to do. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to do that with a bachelor's degree, because in psychology, there's really nothing you can do with a bachelor's degree, really.
Mhm.
So they believed in me and they helped me get into graduate school. And I will never forget the day that I found out I got in graduate school. Like, I literally fell to my knees crying because I was just like, this thing that I wanted more than anything in my life. Like, it was like I felt like everything was kind of hanging on that. Like,
Yeah.
I had that level of like laser focus. Like, this is the only thing I can be, is a clinical psychologist. And so when I got into graduate school, it was just really amazing. It was like years of trauma, you know, that somehow culminated in this like windfall, and also when I got my scholarship to school, it was like that's when things really turned around for me. So then I went to graduate school, and that was rough.
Now, are
And
you getting high all this time or you're not now?
no, no, at that time, no, because my son was too young, and like, thank God,
Hmm.
like, I didn't
Hmm.
have the money to use drugs or alcohol when he was growing up, really.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So thank God. But graduate school was really hard. And as my son got older, he would go to his friends and spend the night, things like that. I would
Hmm.
have I would have unsupervised time, and I started to develop a drinking problem
Hmm.
that ended up taking off pretty quickly, because that's what happens for women, is that we develop alcoholism at a faster rate once we start drinking heavily. It's like it doesn't take long.
Right.
And it didn't take long for me. And so I had a drinking problem that, again, I hid very well from other people. Like, I will never forget the day I got sober and I called my son and let him know. And he had no idea that I had a drinking problem. Like, I had hid it from him that well that he was like, yeah, I mean, really,
You are blowing my mind. Like I was just so balls out and trashed and just such a like acting out all over the place. Like whereas you were like laser focused and
I was
very different
sleeping. I
response.
will be honest with you, I was only sleeping a couple hours a day.
I'm not surprised.
And I did that honestly for 11 years. We lived below poverty level for 11
Good
years,
God.
and I slept a couple hours a night. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know how I got through it. I wouldn't be able to do it today. I really wouldn't. I
Right,
wouldn't.
right. Wow. But you had this superpower driven by sounds like fear and anxiety.
Well, and shame because I didn't feel good enough.
Mm,
Like when I was growing up, Sam, it was never good enough. It was never,
mm,
ever good enough.
mm-hmm. So how is that playing out? I mean, obviously you were getting these stellar grades and doing that kind of thing, but so did you have a sense of success at all while you were having this success?
Yes, but it felt like I feel like I had really pretty serious imposter syndrome. Like each time I got a good grade,
Mm,
it felt like a huge, like, wow, I can't believe. I mean, a lot of times it was like I really surprised myself that somehow I managed to get an A. I mean, I think
wow.
I got like if you have like a 3.96, you have like one A minus or something crazy. It was like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I think I got one A minus, you know.
Wow. You're right, right.
That was just me because I needed to hustle for my worthiness. You know, Brene Brown talks about hustling for your worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely really felt like I needed to hustle for my worthiness. And it wasn't until I reached the end, got my PhD, got a great job, was for all intents and purposes really successful at my career that I realized that that's what I was doing was hustling for my worthiness. And like, I don't need to do that anymore. Now, do
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in denial about the fact that I'm sure that I'm still hustling for worthiness on some unconscious level.
Right,
I'm
right.
sure that there's some little wounded part of me that's
Yeah.
like maybe 5 years old that still feels like I need people's approval, you know, and things like that. So I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
even try to say that's not a struggle anymore. But right around like I think I was probably around 32 years old that I realized that I was hustling for my worthiness and just realized like I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do it for me. I don't want to do it for other people anymore. And I don't need people to tell me that I'm doing a good job. But
Mm-hmm.
it took a long time for me to get there. It really did.
Yeah, yeah. So was it just like an awakening, or were you doing therapy at all that time? I mean, were you getting therapy at all? No.
No,
Wow.
no.
Uh-huh.
I'm not really sure. There must have been an event that happened that I
Mm-hmm.
realized what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was a time when I shared maybe an achievement with my parents and didn't get the kind of I didn't hear I was, you know, that they were proud of me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got to the end that I realized like no matter what I do, literally, like I can put myself through school, raise a child single-handedly, do all these things and still not get their approval.
Right. Right. What do they say in Allen? Going to a hardware store for a loaf of bread?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wasn't ever gonna get it, and it wasn't until I
Mm-hmm.
had, like, completely exhausted myself and run myself into the ground and realized, like, even now it's not gonna work, and so I
Right.
think that finally I just got to a place of, like, accepting the reality for what it was, you
This
know?
is a really, I'm glad you brought this up because for me, this is a place of acute pain. And I've, I too have come to the recognition that I was never going to get what I needed from my parents. And maybe I needed too much. I don't know, but I was never going to get it, whatever it was. I was not going to get the approval, good for you, way to go, kid. Um, and there was a real sense of pain in that for me. Like it was truly painful to not have that validation. Even when I knew better, even when I knew better, it was still painful.
But, you know, something that I've discovered
Mm-hmm.
through my own therapy, because since then I've had a lot of therapy, a lot of good therapy, I should
Oh,
call. I've had a lot
great.
of bad therapy too, but fortunately I've had some good therapy as well. And
Yay.
also from getting sober and things like that, which that's part of my journey as well. But you know, I've realized that it's okay if those things happen to me. You know, I've let go of my resentments. I
Mm-hmm.
realize that those parts of my parents that hurt me were wounded parts of them.
Yes.
Just like the times I've hurt people, it's been a wounded part of me. That
Mm-hmm.
isn't me. That isn't me that goes off on people, because the real authentic Rhonda is when I'm calm and confident and centered. But my little wounded part, my protector, oh yeah, when my protector shows up for a fight, it's not good.
Right. Oh, I
It's
love
not
that.
gonna end well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna end well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to live with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
wow. What a
yeah,
great connection.
yeah, so I've been able to do a lot of work on my wounded parts, which has in turn helped me forgive the people who have hurt me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of them, all of them.
Wow. That's phenomenal. I mean,
Hmm.
I know that, we do a lot of work in AA. Like, if people don't know, you have to face those things in AA, and you have to find a way to forgive people. And sometimes that means therapy, and sometimes it's a long haul.
It is.
It's a long ass haul.
But it's so worth it, because, like, if you can give yourself the things that you didn't get when you were growing up,
Mm-hmm.
that's ultimate freedom.
Mm-hmm. And to know that to see your parents in that light of suffering human beings is
Yes.
is really like heart opening. Like that little heart, that Grinch heart, is like when you know that your parents have suffered and have their own trauma, and that's where they're coming from, your heart just sort of goes, oh, and can it start to embrace forgiveness, in my
Mhm.
experience.
Definitely. So, yeah. And so when I was 38, I got sober, and it was after something that I did while I was drinking that was just absolutely not aligned with my values at all.
Mm-hmm.
It really got my attention, and I couldn't even sleep that night.
Wow. Yeah.
And just woke up the next, like, not even woke up, got out of bed the next morning, got dressed, went to an AA meeting, stayed there. It was at a clubhouse, stayed there all day.
Mm-hmm.
Meetings. I think I was there for like 3 meetings that day. And, that was almost 16 years ago. And so that was another thing that happened in my life that has just really helped tremendously. And since I got sober, I've had a lot of really great things happen in terms of my career, my relationships with people, my self care. I mean, that was really,
If you were sleeping 2 hours a night, yeah, self-care had to happen.
more than I think I might be stealing this line from Johnny Depp this week, but I think he might have been the one that I got this from. But it was basically like, the person who's abused me more than anyone is me, so that forgiveness, I've had to work on, really extending compassion to those parts of me that are wounded, that have done damage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I needed to forgive myself. And as part of forgiving myself, I in turn forgave other people.
Right.
Because once I accepted my own humanity, it was much easier for me to accept other people's as well.
So, but how does one accept one's humanity? Because it's not a matter of like, okay, I see that and now I feel better. It's like a forgiveness for myself has been a rocky road.
Has it?
Yeah. There are
Mhm.
places that are still tender. I don't,
Sure, me too. Me
yeah.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
But forgiveness for you was like it was pretty straightforward. Your self forgiveness.
Well, it came from doing a lot of work with my parts, and like I had to fake it until I made it. Like I had to talk to those little wounded parts of me
Mm-hmm.
and show compassion and appreciation and gratitude for their efforts to protect me and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
through that work, I think actively, not necessarily daily, but frequently,
Mm-hmm.
having that connection with those unconscious parts of me that are still hurt.
Wow, that's really powerful. I don't.
But internal family systems is the structure. That's the theory, the psychological theory. Internal
Okay.
family systems is where this parts language comes from. And it's been incredibly helpful for my own healing and recovery. I use it with the people that I work with in therapy, and they have found it to be super helpful. So, your audience might want to check this out. There's a book written by Richard Schwartz called, I might actually even have it close by, called You Are the One You've Been Waiting For.
Oh, I've heard
And
of that.
it's a really good book. I would
Okay,
really recommend it. But parts work is where it's at. I swear by it.
cool. And that's accepting those parts of you that, as you say, have been, acting out of trauma or damage, or
Right,
and
right,
inflicting pain on others or yourself. And
right, right.
that is so
Mhm.
wild.
But it's like it's a process. It's not an event in most cases for me.
Right. Yeah.
Know?
Yeah.
It's one day I'm forgiving of myself, other days not so much.
hmm hmm
It really depends on what's going on in my life that day. I mean, if somebody is upset with me about what I've done, it's going to be a lot harder for me to forgive myself on those days, you
hmm
know?
hmm Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that's relationships. And I don't mean just intimate, romantic relationships, but just relationships with people, like learning to trust again and learning to be open and intimate with people, like how has that been for you?
It's funny that you should ask. So this has been I think that you'll probably appreciate this very strange reaction that I've had to this awakening recently. So I've been mostly single. I would consider myself, having looked back over the last 20 years of my life, I would say that I have been mostly single. The relationships that I've had that have been pretty wrought with problems, and I will take responsibility for my part in all that, which is probably huge, honestly, because I didn't know how to have relationships with people without making them responsible for how I felt.
I relate to that.
Like literally the concept of taking 100% responsibility for your behavior and your feelings is a relatively new concept in my life, believe it or not.
No, I get that. Yeah.
So I used to go to my partners and try to make them responsible for my feelings, having very little insight into my own feelings and
hmm
my own part in things. I was very quick to blame them. And that, I think, is definitely directly related to my trauma. And because all of my traumas were at the hands of a man.
ah hmm
I don't have any illusions about the way that that has impacted my relationships with people. It may
Gotcha.
not have affected my relationships with people in the sense that I don't get triggered, let's say, by sexual things,
hmm
or I don't have nightmares about, the traumas and things like that. Okay. But there's other ways that trauma affects you.
Yeah.
And having this, there is like a part of me, again, a part of me that I think just did not trust them and did not really let them in. And so I
hmm
think I was very quick to blame them when I didn't feel close to them, rather than recognizing like that maybe I could be in therapy or with a better therapist, or.
hmm
And so it's been interesting. And I only recently kind of came to the realization that maybe I want a relationship.
hmm Wow.
And that's been a really hard realization to have. And
hmm
believe it or not, I have cried about this a lot in the last few weeks,
Oh, interesting. Wow.
because that is not what my head wants.
Gotcha.
My heart my heart wants the intimacy, wants the love, wants the companionship,
hmm
but my head does not.
Boy,
Because
do I connect with that.
in my head, I'm not good at it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But that's not true.
Right.
I haven't even really tried.
Right. You think it's that headspace thinks it's going to be fraught, to be in a relationship. It's just going to be fraught. I know what's coming. I know how it's going to, but yeah, with this new recognition of how you've or we have manipulated people in our relationships, you're like a new person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So I feel like now I'm actually good relationship material.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the first time I'm saying that out loud.
Wow. You heard it here, people.
But I think it's true. I really think it's true. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I feel like I think I've maybe finally done enough inner work
Uh-huh.
that I would actually be good at a relationship.
It's so interesting to me because, like, I think of you and I think of myself and other people I know, and we're such good friends. I have friends for years and years and years. And, why wouldn't we be good in intimate romantic relationships? But something happens. There's this disconnect, and it's a problem. It's a problem in my longevity in relationships for sure.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. But trust is hard, and I've really come to appreciate that trust is a decision that we make. Like
Hmm.
right now, I'm trusting to believe that no one's going to jump the curb and hit my house with a car and, whatever. I'm choosing to believe that's not going to happen because I want to be present with you. And
Hmm.
it's kind of the same thing with relationships with people. Like, I notice myself choosing to believe that someone's telling the truth. And I'll share stories with other people, and they're like, bro, that's not true. Like, no, you're so naive. But I've really come to like trust my gut about things,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I've really become much better at being attuned with it. And so, like, my gut and my feelings about somebody, I trust a lot more now, you
Uh-huh.
know?
Uh,
And I trust that if it's not good, I'm going to get myself out of that relationship, because that's the other part of forgiveness is like, and security is like, I need to learn to trust myself, like that
hmm.
I'm going to have my own back, that I'm going to show up for myself. Because I didn't, like, I abandoned myself all the years of drinking, you know, all the bad relationships that I stayed in
Hmm.
where I was unhappy.
Yeah.
And I didn't show up for myself. And I think that's another reason why I feel like more ready to have an intimate relationship with someone else, is that I feel like I finally do trust myself, and I
Hmm.
won't have that same level of like anxiety about what they're doing, how they're feeling, that codependency and that
Yeah. Yeah.
in today's terms, a lot of people call it like anxious attachment, but it's really closely related to codependency. Like,
Mhm.
I'm much more securely attached today because of the inner work that I've done in terms of trusting myself.
That's awesome because I don't want to feel that way. I hate that feeling, that codependent. Yeah, or obsession. Like I don't want it. And here's my thing. I've been dating men for the past few years, which is new for me. It's been rare that I've met a man that I've dated who's truly interested in getting to know me, truly interested.
I feel that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's a culturation that, men go through, or if it's just been my bad luck, or, what the deal is. But
That's really interesting, Sam. Yeah. I think that's true, but I will say that when there is someone that really does seem to want to get to know me,
hmm.
it's so nice. It's so nice.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It's so lovely, and like, it shouldn't feel like a breath of fresh air, but it does.
Well, and I know for myself, I'm also on the flip to own my part of it. I can be very cagey. I seem like I'm very out and open, but I'm also very protective. So, who knows?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Relationships are just interesting. But like yourself, I feel like I'm in a different place with it. I feel ready for something new that I have yet to experience.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the exact same way. You and I are on the same wavelength.
Are you actively seeking a relationship, or are you just waiting, hope it's just letting the universe do its magic?
For the last few months, I've been seeing different people
Mm-hmm.
and on a very casual dating basis,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the folks that I'm seeing casually are on the same wavelength as I am in terms of wanting something casual. So yeah,
That's cool.
I'll have to start looking again. And that, to be honest with you, is like one of the reasons why I've been distressed about it. Like, wow, no, this is happening. No, this can't be happening. No, no, I
Uh,
do not want this to happen at all. But
yeah.
my sister, I went on vacation with my sister, and she's the one that I think got me thinking about it because she knew what I was doing in terms of seeing different people. And she said, I think you really want a relationship, because she's more like a traditional person.
Mm-hmm.
So when she first said it, I was like, no, 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 girl, you don't understand. No, I don't. Like, I love my life right now. I do not need a relationship.
Right.
But, like, I think she planted a seed. And I think over the last couple months, it's kind of been brewing. Then all of a sudden, it was literally like an epiphany, like, wow,
Mm.
I've changed. I want a relationship.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're the first person other than my therapist that I've told that to.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's really wonderful. I mean, it's a great marker of growth.
It's huge vulnerability, huge.
Yes. Yes.
But I feel like after all the work that I've done, I feel like I'm finally ready to be like really, truly vulnerable with someone.
That's so great. I'm so happy for you. And I hope it
Yeah.
happens. I do, because you're amazing. So I'm going to ask you my big question. I don't usually just ask this, but I'm going to ask you, why
Yeah.
live, Rhonda? Why live?
My life is so incredible. My life is way better than I would have ever imagined it. Like I told someone recently, if someone had asked me what I dreamt for when I was a kid, I would have sold myself very, very short.
Mm.
I literally get up in the morning and look forward to going to work. I question if this life is even real most of the time because it's so
Wow.
time. Yes.
Nice.
I'm so juiced about mental health that I started a podcast.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm just doing a lot, and I feel like this is the time of my life. So I'm not going to say that I won't ever feel differently, because I'm not, I
Right.
know that these can change,
Yeah, you're not
because
delusional.
I've been morbidly depressed. I've been
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I've been like way more depressed than most people know anything about, like very morbidly depressed.
Mm.
That runs in my family too. And
Mm-hmm.
it can hit me just kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So every day that I'm feeling good is a good day for me,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I don't take that for granted. I really don't.
No, it's amazing that we're above ground for one.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. But if you had asked me this question in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s, like the answer to that would have been very, very different.
Mm-hmm. How do you think the
Mhm.
answer has changed most recently?
I just think that my life is so much easier now.
Mm.
I mean, I don't have any kids at home. It's just me and my bulldogs, like,
Oh, the
and my
bullies.
job. I love my job. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. I love to work. I probably work too much. And that was the other thing. Oh, that was the other thing. I think that's what made me realize that I want a relationship, is that I'm keeping myself so busy
Uh-huh.
that I wouldn't have time for one.
Oh, that.
And like dragged myself to my therapist about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a realization I had one day. I was like, wow, you're consistently working till 10:30, 11:30 at night. Like I've been doing that for the last few months.
Wow.
Yeah. And like not even wanting to quit then. I know it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like manic. It's not manic, but it's just like me being really excited about what I do and being
I
really
get
jacked
that.
up. And I have an excessive amount of energy, but like realizing like, wow, I wonder what would happen if I wasn't busy. And I realized I would be lonely.
Oh.
And that's such a gross feeling for me. I do
Uh-huh.
not like feeling lonely.
Mm-mm.
I rarely even let myself be lonely. It's that bad of a feeling for me,
Uh-huh.
you know? But at the end of the day, I was like, damn, I think that's true. And like I said, my head did not want to accept this at all, but it was like this truth that was very apparent to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what it'll be like, but I am like pretty excited about it, believe it or not.
That's cool. That's a good way. That's a good place to be, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting people out there to get to know.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of fun dating, you know.
Okay,
You don't
good.
hear a lot of people saying that. I love dating. I
Uh-huh.
love it.
What do you love about it? You just like going out and meeting new people?
I like, yeah, I mean, I've kind of, truth be told, I'm kind of boy crazy in a sense. I've always been kind of boy crazy, honestly.
Yes.
But so I like spending time with men, but also I don't know. I just like getting to know people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I love my job as much as I love it, is just like I'm like I love getting to know people.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're very good at it.
Thank you.
Is there
Thank you.
anything you're welcome. Is there anything you want to leave the people with, Rhonda? Or
Yeah, I just want to, one last thing that I'll say is
yeah.
that I want people to know that no matter what is going on in their life, no matter how much trauma they've been through, and I'm not just speaking from my own personal experience, I'm talking about the people that I've had the pleasure to serve in my practice and the people that I've worked with. Despite all the trauma that maybe you've been through in your life, whether that's like big T trauma or little t trauma, right? Is that things can turn around for you. Things can get better. If you're struggling, definitely seek, you know, help from your friends, from don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional. You can go on Psychology Today. That's a database. You can search for
Mm-hmm.
uh, psychologists that way. It's a database, and you can search by your zip code. You can search by their area of expertise. You can search by what insurance they accept. And you can find someone and you can just like copy and paste an email that you send out to a bunch of them to see who will respond, meet with them, see if you think you're going to vibe with them and see how
Uh-huh.
that goes. But yeah, and if you're suffering from you know, PTSD, there's also non-traditional, you know, plant medicine like MDMA trials that are going on right
Right.
now, and I'm involved in a study looking at stellate ganglion block, which is a 10-minute medical procedure where people leave that procedure basically being, for all intents and purposes, cured of PTSD.
Whoa.
So yeah, there's lots there, and you know, people doing ayahuasca ceremonies, like
Right.
there's lots of different journeys of healing. It doesn't have to just be
Right. Ketamine is
professional.
happening. Yeah. There's a lot of new studies. Yeah.
Right,
New
right.
technologies.
Yes, right, exactly.
Hmm.
Right.
Cool.
Mhm.
Well, that's a good thing to leave the people with. Thank you.
Yeah, just have hope and don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. It's been
Thanks,
such a
Sam. It was
delight.
great. Yeah, it was great hanging out with you too. Yeah, it's always great to see you. Thank you.
Yeah.